Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I thought today I'd have a look at an old app and one that is really useful, and it's probably one that you might want to get if you've not got already. I suspect many of you have. This app is called Bismarck BS-16i. And what is Bismarck? Well, it lists itself as a multi-timbral playback sampler. And basically what it does is it is able to import sound files in the soundfont SF2 format. Now, these are available online. Some of them are free, some of them you pay for, but there's plenty of them about. And it gives you the option to get hold of sample-based sounds, which you can then load into Bismarck and then play them on your keyboard. Now, Bismarck is AV3. It works with Interap Audio. It works with the Audio Bus 3 protocol. So it's basically will work in all your DAWs. It specifically says it works in GarageBand, because I know that one can be a little bit of an iffy one. But talking about it, it is £7.99 to buy. There's a couple of IAPs in there, one for the high-res engine and one for 128-note polyphony. Now, to be honest, they're nice things to have, but they're definitely not necessary. So you can happily use this app to a great amount of its potential with just the standard price of the app itself. So let's have a look into it. So it is very blue, and I guess it looks potentially a little bit daunting at the moment. There's a lot of stuff going on the screen, and let's talk about what's going on. We've obviously got a nice on-screen keyboard which we can play around with, as you can play it using the on-screen. We've got an equalizer. Now, where this is very different to similar apps is that you can assign different sounds and different sound fonts to different MIDI channels, and BS-16i will actually be able to play them. So depending on, if you set up half a dozen different sounds, and then you can swap on your MIDI controller which channel you're working on, it will seamlessly flip between each of the sounds. So something that might be quite useful in a live environment. It can also play stuff simultaneously, so it will actually load in MIDI files and play them back. I'm not going to look too closely at that today because I think it's a bit of a limited use case scenario. For me, this is a great go-to app if I just want some basic sounds to add within my tracks. So what have we got on the screen? Let's start with the keyboard section. We've got mod wheel and pitch bend at the very left-hand side. We can assign which parts we're using. So this is within BS-16. You can actually define different areas of the keyboard at different parts. So you can actually do a split keyboard setup using the app. Let's come out of that. We can then choose which MIDI channel it sends on. So we've got a choice of 16 channels there, as you'd expect. We can solo and mute it. We can change the octave of the on-screen keyboard. There's a sustain option, and I've just had a play around, and this works both with my expression pedal and the sustain pedal, so that's quite useful. The scroll here allows you to scroll up and down the on-screen keyboard. Again, only useful if you want to input using the on-screen keyboard. You can change the width of the display to show different number of notes. You've got volume, you've got panning, and then you've got your reverb, chorus, and delay options, which again you can play around with in the equalizer section up at the top. I can change the tuning. We've got filter options. So that's your tuning. Those are your filters. And you can play around with vibrato using LFO. And finally, on this keyboard section, you've got access to the sounds. Now, I mentioned that BS-16i comes with a built-in sound font. It's a general MIDI one, and well, you get quite a few sounds for your entry price. And again, we've got some orchestral sounds, and then we've got some bonkers sounds as well. So let's try a scream. That's a scream. Bit of applause, you didn't have to, but thanks anyway. Starships. But for me, the thing which really drew me into this app was the sample-based orchestral sounds. At the time when I bought this, I didn't really have, or certainly it was pre-SWAM instruments. And so what tended to be the best available sounds really came from samples, which, you know, for many cases are absolutely fine. But, you know, we've got guitars in here, we've got organs, we've got some pianos in here, and say a whole host of things. So if we just go to the basic stereo grand, it also has aftertouch. I hit the keys too hard there. So if I start messing around with the expression pedal, that all works. And then of course the sustain pedal. So yes, the only issue I have occasionally is if you hit the keys too hard, the aftertouch comes on and you can get a bit of a warbling effect, which you may want. I don't necessarily want that to go on. So we could actually search the instruments here. So, you know, we could look for an accordion, say. There we go. Spelt with an A, interestingly. Complete with a little bit of aftertouch warble as well. So as you can see, there's a number of options here. Let's just go to that keyboard. So we've got the whole list. Let's have a play around. We've got room drums. So it's the general MIDI standard. I was just hitting the C1 and D1 just to tap out a finger rhythm there, which is why it was as iffy as it sounded. But you've got a whole array of all sorts of weird and wonderful percussion instruments, which you often don't get in some of the other apps. You just get your basic drum kit, your 16 pads, and that's your lot. This, I think you've got 4 octaves of sounds, which are quite nice to play with if that's what you want. And again, because it's AUV3, you can load this app into your DAW and play the sounds, and it all works nicely. Now, where this becomes even more powerful is that you can load different libraries in. So if we come out of that and we go into the settings. Now, this is in standalone mode. I just thought it was probably easy to show this way. We can go into the synthesizer. This is where you can set up, if you've got the high-res engine and your high rate polyphony, you can change that here. You can change your sample rate. You can use breath control. Again, I don't have a breath control, so I can't really show that off. But with this, you can then pick out your different parts that you want to work with, say which MIDI channel you want to send them on, and which keys. So you can have a blended patch. We'll have a look at one of those very shortly. Or you can have a split keyboard. So you maybe have a bass, guitar sound on the bottom, a couple of keys, and then another sound up at the top. And that's really where you set everything up here. So if we come out of that and go into scenes, these are some of the options which they've created to demonstrate. So we'll try the part 1 and part 2 layer. So what's going to happen here is we're going to have 2 different patches layering on top of each other on all the keys. So if we come out of that, So what you can have with this is, if you're wanting a really stacked sound, you could build it all in BS-16i and then load that one instance into your DAW and record your MIDI, and then you're getting all those instruments playing all together just as one set of MIDI. So that could actually save a little bit of time and make your actual projects a little less complicated than it might otherwise be. Now, if we have a look at another scene here, this is the split. So what they've got here is an electric piano up at the for most of the keyboard, but at the very bottom of the keyboard, they've just got the bass guitar. So the use case of that is often in a live situation, you're wanting to have different parts of the keyboard set up to play different instruments, and then just swap between them. And that's all set up within the parts section, which we looked at under synthesizer. Now, other things in the settings, I mentioned the in-app purchases, which are the high-res engine and the polyphony. So that's £449, £249. Now, I've actually not got either of these. I can get all I want out of BS-16i with just the base purchase price, but those options are there should you need them. If we go into wavetables, I find this one a slightly weird term, because wavetable synths means something different in my mind. But this is really where you can go in and load different wavetables. So at the moment, we've just got this general user soft synth in the system. But say we wanted to download and get another sound font. How do we do that? Well, we can go into library number 2 and you click import wavetable file, and then you just go looking in your files app, find the sound font file and select it. Now, I've actually already selected a couple of others. So if we look at this, let's try the Guitars Universal. This is a freebie one, which I just downloaded off the internet. If we select that one, I've got a feeling the 12 string's quite nice. And of course, you could take these sounds and then use something like 4 Pocket's MIDI strummer as the controller, and get that playing a guitar strumming sound, and put in one of these sound fonts, and then you've potentially got a more realistic guitar strumming effect. If we come out and let's have a look at the other ones we've got. Let's go into library 3 and let's load Essential Keys again. I think this was just a general download from the BS-16i website. Come into there, go into library 3, and we've got a good selection of pianos, including some DX7 equivalents. And you bear in mind we've paid £7.99 UK price for this app. All these additional sound fonts I'm just showing are free. So to get a whole sort of pile of different pianos, let's try this Yamaha Grand. Concert Grand. You're not paying anything extra for this, so it's actually pretty good value for being able to load in lots of different sounds. Let's do a Rhodes, because people like Rhodes. So you can quickly see the power of this app in terms of giving you access to a lot of different sounds for not a huge amount of money. I mean, the app's been out a good few years. I think it's over 4 years old, but it's still being updated. It still works, and it's nice to use. We can change the screen on this and have 2 on-screen keyboards. And I mean, at the moment we've got this bottom keyboard set up as part 1 on channel 1, and on channel 2 we've got a stereo grand. Let's pick something a bit different so it's nice and obvious. Let's have a clavinet. And so if I wanted to use these as layers, we could layer them together. We could actually just send them both to the same MIDI channel. And it's very quickly a two-track layer. If we wanted to go to this mixing desk thing here, we could then add another track to it. What can we have that's going to be? Let's have a vibraphone, and we'll send that out from channel 1 as well. Let's take the volume of this Rhodes down a bit because I think it's drowning everything out. If we take the clavinet down. So it's a nice, easy way to get that blended sound that I mentioned earlier. And again, we can split them around. So we could put the panning in different places. That's quite neat, really, isn't it? Now, something I won't play because I don't know whether there's a copyright issue on it. Internally in this, you can load MIDI files, and it comes with sample.mid, and that has different instruments on different MIDI channels, and you can set that playing. I'll play it. Get it started, but I'll only give a second just in case. So, sneak preview. If you want to hear more of it, buy the app. But it basically means you can actually set up whole projects to play back. So, potentially you could use this as a backing track setup. You could, if you've got all your tracks built up in MIDI, you could get BS-16 to play them and then sing along. That's always possible. But you need to be able to create the MIDI file so that the individual tracks are all being sent on different MIDI channels. Otherwise, they'll all be piped through the same thing, and you'll just get a cacophony of disaster, which is what I had when I tried to bring one of my MIDI files in. So it's just something to be aware of. It can do that. It's not something I would use for, but again, from a live musician point of view, that could be something that's interesting. Let's just do the other buttons on the screen. We can change the display, so between the 2 keyboards or 1 keyboard and effects, or effects and mixing desk. Obviously, you've got your play and stop of your MIDI file, and that just gives you your bars and your time signature and your tempo. You've got a play head, so you can just see how far through the track it is. There's an export button. There's your level output. This thing is just a little light that turns on when MIDI data is coming through, and you'll also see that on the individual channels here as well, depending on what MIDI channel they're receiving the data from. This is your MIDI control center, so you can do a reset, turn all your notes off, and then set out your inputs and your outputs. And it also does Bluetooth and other local MIDI bits and pieces. Musical typing. That basically allows you to use a computer keyboard as a musical note interface. 3D touch is only really appropriate if you've got an iPhone that supports that. And it's got an accelerometer there as well. So there's all sorts of clever bits and pieces that this app can use. And I generally literally use it as a sound source or a layering sound source. So yeah, it's a nice app. It's one which you may have overlooked if you're relatively new to the iOS music scene, but it's certainly well worth getting, if nothing else, just for the availability of some pretty good sounds, which you can then use in your projects. So any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you if I can and answer them. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that bell notification thing. And you'll be notified as and when I create new material. But until the next time, have a good day and thanks for watching.